A revolution, everybody. This is Brother Leonard, the Truth Seeker. Good morning to you. Coming to you with a few minutes of truth. I just woke up and I found out that Cardinal Donald Wuerl, now in D.C., has made a statement. You know that's coming after my commentary, but this whole church thing, this whole Catholic Church report, it's ridiculous. What the response of these preachers is ridiculous. I mean, when you look at the commentary, when you look at his response, what you're going to find out is that he made several excuses on why he didn't do more. And then tried to justify the fact that that they're doing stuff now. Well, that's good that you're doing stuff now, but there are thousands of victims that needed stuff done for them then and need stuff done for them right now. He does nothing. He says nothing to address those needs in the interview. One of the things that he kept saying was that the process for handling these situations, that they did not technically know what to do, or what they did was where they removed priests. Now, he talked about folk being removed. What he didn't say was that, yes, the priests were removed, but they were shuffled to another diocese. In most cases, except for a couple that actually went to jail. But in most cases, they went from his diocese to another diocese. So the whole process of moving bishops from around the country, Donald Wuerl actually admits this. So instead of dealing with any real punishment, and in one of the cases, he talked about how one of the priests, after he got out of jail, that the church still paid him a stipend. Gave him $1,000 a month. He's still part of the church, and he gets $1,000 a month. This is ridiculous. Yeah, I'm not going to be too long on this. A couple other things up here. It's getting kind of interesting on this whole church thing as well. There is a petition on change.org, and I'm going to sign it pretty soon to remove the name Cardinal Wuerl, North Catholic Church, to remove his name from that, not church, but school. Remove his name from the school. See, they named their school after Donald Wuerl. I told you when he was up in Pittsburgh, he was a very well-respected man here in Pittsburgh. And they gave him the honor of naming that school. But yet you see in the report that he was protecting the pedophile priests. He was protecting these predators. And even in this interview, he talks about a story how he's angry at the thing, but he talked about how they went through an evaluation and then they would find that there was nothing wrong with the priests. See, this is something that really is very easy to look at now. Even back then, I still don't understand why, when allegations of sexual abuse, sexual assault, rape of a child, why the first thing that did not happen is only 3 numbers. Why the first thing that didn't happen, Cardinal Wuerl, was you dialing 911. I can understand the he said, she said amongst adults. But parents are coming to you with their children being abused, and you're sitting up here taking their word of, please don't make this public. Yeah, they didn't want to make this public because they did not want their child, their victim, to be shamed in public. It was them they were trying to protect. You're sitting up here using that as a means of, oh, since they don't want public, don't want it to go public, I guess they just want, no, you're looking at it from the priest perspective. This is the stuff that needs to stop, people. All right. Listen, go to change.org. Go to change.org. Find that. I'm going to put the link to the change.org to remove Cardinal Wuerl's name from the school. Listen, I'm on a campaign of defrock Zubik, defrock Wuerl. Get rid of these jokers. Get rid of them. Catholic folk, y'all Catholic, get rid of them. Y'all need to start your own campaign to get rid of these fools. And not just to get them demoted, not just to get them reassigned. Nah. Y'all need to sit up there and get these people removed permanently. That's what y'all need to do. This is Brother Leonard, the Truth Seeker. Watch this mess. Revolution.
Cardinal, thank you for speaking with us today.
I'm very pleased to have this opportunity.
I want to start with what you just told your parishioners at the beginning of Mass. You said the pain and suffering are something that we need to take responsibility for, and you were concerned about a lack of confidence in the church. Yeah. Are you concerned about a lack of confidence in you?
I hope not. I hope that is not going to be my primary concern. I think it's a part of what I'd be thinking about. But I have to tell you that when all of this came forward, once again, when we heard of the grand jury report and we looked back, I thought I was having the same feelings I had when I was first named a bishop and first encountered this whole question of abuse. There was a family, and two of the boys in the family had been abused by a priest. When I heard that, I was just angry. And I said to my priest secretary, we're going to go visit that family right now. Call and see if they'll receive me. And as often happens in families, the dad answered the phone, and when I identified myself and said, can I come and see your family? He said, I would love to have you come, but I better check with my wife. And she got on the phone and said, please come. But I had the time driving down there to calm down a bit, because I was just so angry.
And I want to talk about where you are right now. There are people who have heard about what is in this grand jury report, who watched that news conference yesterday, that are sickened by the things that are in there. And they want to know, should you resign? Should you be removed as the Archbishop of Washington?
In my efforts from the time that I reached Pittsburgh on through to today, I have tried to do my very best to deal with this whole question of allegations against a priest. Now remember, we're talking about a long spectrum of time. So how we dealt with things in the late 80s, early 90s is different than the way we would today.
At one point in one of your statements, you referenced an evolution when it comes to the understanding of child abuse.
Yeah.
What could possibly evolve about understanding child sexual abuse?
No, what evolved was how do you deal with it, and how do you deal with an allegation? Remember now, when an allegation comes forward, that allegation oftentimes ends up being one word against another. And part of the evolution, I think, has been to recognize. Then we said, all right, let's ask this priest to undergo an evaluation. And we used the best science that was available to us then to say, okay, what is the situation? And many times we would get back, this person doesn't demonstrate any of those tendencies. So then the question was, okay, what do we do to preserve both the well-being of the person who is making the allegation, and that always has to be our primary focus.
Why not call law enforcement and let them deal with it?
And we do that now, but that was part of coming to understand how to deal with this. Many times families would say, please do not make this public. And we would always say to families, you should take this to the police. We reached a certain point in this evolution when I would say, look, you've brought to me an allegation. You've just said to me, please keep this confidential. I have to say to you, I'm turning this over to the authorities.
Did you do enough personally to stop this kind of activity in your diocese?
I think I did everything that I possibly could. One of the things that we did was we put into place a review board so that there would be a way of looking at any of the allegations that would take it beyond just myself and my office looking at it. But another thing I think we did, we tried often to speak to our priests and particularly to our seminarians about the absolute need for them to live up to their promise of celibacy, and that how absolutely devastating it is for someone to break that and harm a child.
Cardinal, the report and the Pennsylvania Attorney General have a very different view of this. The report says priests were raping little boys and girls, and the men of God who were responsible for them did nothing, and he did all. Shapiro yesterday in his news conference says the church showed a complete disdain for the victims. Did the Catholic Church show disdain for the victims?
I don't think that's an exact. I think that's his take. To say we did nothing at all, that's simply not verified with the facts. Think of, and he says this in the report, how many people I removed, how many priests I removed. So it's not really exact to say we just showed a disdain for the victims. I met with every victim. Anyone who would come forward, I met with. And I have to say, more than once, shared a tear with them as they or their parents told the story.
You are mentioned no less than 15 times in this grand jury report. In none of those mentions it is glowing, but yet in your own statement you had said that you thought that while it would be critical of your actions, it would show that you had taken proper steps. There is nowhere in this 900-page report that indicates that you took proper steps.
Oh, I don't think that's altogether exact, because in the report itself, it makes mention of the number of priests I removed. The Attorney General's report itself mentions the good number of priests that I removed. Then he goes on to say, but not all of them. So I think it's not altogether exact to say that that was a one-sided report. It took cognizance of the things we put into place, of the efforts to determine if there was really an allegation that could be proved, whether there was a way to get at the very root of this. And it says very clearly the number of priests I removed from ministry. So I think when I read at least parts of it that I was able to see, and that summary and part of the press conference by the Attorney General, I thought he mentioned very, very often the number of people I removed, and that was a very positive thing.
You had told CBS News that moving priests was out of our process, but yet in 3 instances in the grand jury report, in regards to Ernest Payon, George Zivas, Richard Zula. There are questions about your activity. In Zula, he was given a $1,000 stipend after he was released from prison. How does this square with what you're saying here?
He was removed.
Yeah.
He was removed. You were commenting on that he received some sustenance payment, which we're obliged by canon law to do. So I think that only reinforced what I said, that I removed this priest. Zula was removed from ministry. The comment and the complaint of the report was that he continued to receive sustenance, which was obligatory on me by the law of the church. So I think that just verifies what I was saying. We worked very hard to get these people out of ministry, but we needed to know, we needed to have something more than just the allegation. And in his case, it was clear. It was clear.
This is one state. This is not even all the counties in the state of Pennsylvania. Does the Catholic Church, do the priests, do the bishops, do the cardinals, does the Pope understand how sickening this is to people?
I think we all do. I think we do. And I think we thought we had made great inroads in controlling that in 2002. If you remember, all the bishops met, we put into place that charter for the protection of children and young people. And from that time on, if you looked at the graph, now we're just talking about one diocese, Pittsburgh.
Right.
If you look at the graph, the chart they prepared, you see the enormous drop-off in any claims of abuse from that time on. Actually, it began before in Pittsburgh because we had put in some very stringent regulations and some very stringent policies. So in a way, part of my anger and part of the revulsion I felt was we thought we had this well under control. The report goes back before the charter. It goes all the way back 70 years. And when you look back and you see all of that, it sounds as if we didn't do anything. But when you look at the actual numbers from 2002 on, those numbers dropped dramatically.
I have to ask you, though, that in the past 24 hours, there does seem to be a concerted effort to push back and discredit parts of this grand jury report. There is a website that went live last night called The Wuerl Record, which says, our understanding of child sexual abuse has increased. Kim Fiorentino, who's the Chancellor, General Counsel of this diocese, told the Catholic Standard that it was a flawed process that fails the survivors and has inaccuracies. How is that accepting of the grand jury's work here and moving towards fixing some of these problems?
Well, I think you have to distinguish the two, don't you? You have to distinguish the two. There's nothing that says we have to accept every single word in that grand jury's report, because it does have its own spin. It does have its own spin on things. I think even the court in Pennsylvania raised the question of giving some more time for some of the people who wanted to answer the questions. But I think you distinguish between, is every word in the grand jury report gospel truth, and what were we doing, what were the bishops doing to try to see that abuse didn't go forward? Remember, so much of that report is about things in the past. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about from 1988 involving me on through, and particularly after the charter. Mm-hmm. So I greatly respect, and in fact, one of the things that I found so really hard to digest was when the report began to indicate how many people, how many priests were involved, how many people were abused.
300, 1,000 victims. Yes,
that's 5% of the clergy. So that was enough to really make me very, very, not to say annoyed, angry, that was the percentage. But then we had to turn to what was being done, what is being done, and why are so many of those cases from the past? Now that doesn't in any way diminish the pain of a victim. Mm-hmm. And it certainly doesn't diminish my anger when I hear about it. But the fact is that that report, in the case of Pittsburgh, highlighted the number of things that were done.
Let's talk about it right now. Catholics in your diocese right now have already been through a tumultuous shock.
Yeah.
The news and the allegation against Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. Now this. What do you say to them, and what do you say to a parent about whether they have questions about you and about continuing in this church?
Yeah, the whole Cardinal McCarrick, that awful revelation. Now remember, that we're told was decades ago. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure. I mean, that was decades ago. I'm not sure what, beyond what we've done, excuse me, I'm not sure beyond what we have done now we can say. We have in place, and the Holy Father stepped in immediately. We applied what we have in place, and Cardinal McCarrick was removed. I think that's proof that we took very seriously any of the allegations and put into place some sort of a mechanism to deal with them. I think when you look at the charts, you look at the facts, you look at the numbers, and I would hope the Catholics of this archdiocese would realize with me that we are dealing with something that we are very much trying to be on top of today. I can't heal anything from the past. We can try. But where we need to be today is moving forward to see that these things don't happen. And I think that's one of the great consolations we have. It's not a substantial blowing away of all of this, but there is at least the consolation of knowing that the charter and the implementation of it does seem to be working.
But is there a structure to the priesthood which is contributing to this? Many Catholics, for many years, since Vatican II, have questioned the idea of celibate, non-married priest. That they feel it is an abnormal style of life and may be contributing to abnormal behavior in some priests. Would ordaining women, would ordaining married people bring a more sense of community to the priesthood and maybe root out some of this activity?
I'm not sure that's really the heart of the issue, celibacy and marriage. I'm not sure celibacy is the problem, and I don't think marriage is necessarily the solution. I think the real issue here is that level of maturity, that level of priestly formation that is healthy and wholesome. It's one of the things that in our seminary programs today we're very attuned to. You have to keep working with every young man to help him arrive at that internalizing of the blessing of celibacy. The Lord Jesus was celibate, and we model our life on him.
Cardinal, my last two questions are this. What assurances can you give Catholics here in the Archdiocese and Catholics across this country right now that this kind of behavior is not going on, that the Church is not hiding it, and the Church has changed its ways?
I wish I could say there was some pat answer to that, but I do think, looking statistically and even using that Pennsylvania report to say the Church is making progress. Up until we began this zero tolerance, and up until we had the charter, that's when you found so many of these cases, these terrible, horrific cases of someone abusing, a priest abusing a youngster. But then, from the time of the zero tolerance policy in Pittsburgh, from the time of the policy here in this archdiocese, which goes back even earlier than that, and certainly from the time of the charter, that stream of abuse has pretty well welled up, dried up. It's pretty well dried up, that whole stream of it. However, we also have to be aware that we have to continually work at seeing that no abuse takes place, and that when it does, we're the first ones there. We're the first responders to any act of clerical abuse.
This is my last question. You have been one of the most respected people in this city for years. People are drawn to you. They call you Your Eminence. You are a cardinal. You are our archbishop here in the city of Washington. You're also a human being, though. You're not charged with any crime in that grand jury report. No one has said you've committed a crime. But what could you have done better, and what do you have to say to people to regain that responsibility that you talked about at the start of Mass today?
Yeah. I think that whole idea of saying, here's what we're doing today, because there's no way to change what has happened other than to admit that there were awful things that happened. And obviously, if they happened, there wasn't the mechanism in place to see that they didn't happen. But the one thing I can say to every single person in this community, Catholic or someone who isn't a member of our family, the Church has such good policy in place, and we implement it very, very thoroughly. And the commitment is there because we feel that pain of seeing the face of someone who has been abused. So I think right now, I would say to every member of this community, to every member of the Church, yes, there were failures. Yes, there were things that didn't work the way they should have. And yes, as I said at Mass, there is the need for contrition, and there's also the need to recognize that not all of the clergy were doing what they should have done. But that said, we can also say, in this archdiocese, we have extraordinary policy in place. And we work with our seminarians and our priests to see that it's implemented and lived. And if there is, and thank God right now we do not have before us an allegation, but if there is, we address it as quickly and as seriously as we can. The one thing that has emerged, and I began this conversation with that, the one thing that has emerged, I think, in the hearts of all of us, certainly I'm speaking for myself now, is the sense of anger, the sense of betrayal, the sense that we just have to be better at addressing this, and then realizing we are making steps forward. This isn't as if we had retreated into the past. We're making steps forward. Let's just keep working at it, and let's just keep making sure that if an allegation comes forward today, it's addressed in the light of today's needs.
Cardinal Donald Wuerl, we appreciate you sitting down and speaking with us today.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And to every single person anywhere in this country who has suffered the pain and the indignity of abuse at the hands of the priest, all I can say is I feel a deep sense of sorrow with you and for you. And I certainly hope that people can understand that this sorrow is also a form of contrition on behalf of the Church.
Revolution. This is Brother Leonard, the Truth Seeker. Thank you for viewing this video. If you like this video, let me know by leaving a comment and clicking that like button. Also, if you do like what I do, please subscribe to this channel and share this video and others on my channel on your social media. If you want more information on what we do within the Church Folk Revolution, go to facebook.com/The Church Folk Revolution, all one word, The Church Folk Revolution, and join the movement. Once again, this is Brother Leonard, the Truth Seeker. Revolution.